Greetings all, this is Dominick from the Comic Book Report YouTube channel, over here doing another guest review for organicpricedbooks.com. And today I'm back with another omnibus overview, this time for Captain Marvel by Kelly Sue DeConnick. In this omnibus, the issues were primarily written by Kelly Sue DeConnick and illustrated primarily by Dexter Soy, Felipe Andrade, and David Lopez, among others. The comics in this volume were published originally by Marvel beginning in 2012. The collection itself includes Captain Marvel, the 2012 series, issues 1 through 17, Captain Marvel, the 2014 series, issues 1 through 15, Avengers, The Enemy Within, Avengers Assemble, issues 16 through 19, Avenging Spider-Man, issues 9 and 10, and Captain Marvel and the Carol Corps, issues 1 through 4. And finally, this is an oversized hardcover collection that has a sewn binding and glossy print paper stock coming in at 976 pages. Now, as we take a closer look at the dust jacket, I will say that this is the direct market DM cover for this omnibus. There is a standard edition cover that is a little bit different. I'll go ahead and throw up a picture of that cover just so you can see it and compare for yourself. As far as the look of this omnibus, I think both are very strong covers. I personally love this direct market cover. I think it's just really sleek looking. I think the kind of white borderline around it also looks really nice and clean. The spine also is one of the white spined omnibuses. I think it's really striking on the bookcase. I like the white and yellow. It's a little bit different from a lot of what I have in my collection, and I think it just really pops, and it definitely serves the color palette we see in this book quite a bit. The back cover as well, we have a really great action pose for Captain Marvel with her full helmet up, with her hair kind of mohawked. I really dig it. I think that this was such a great pick for the back of the dust jacket. It definitely made me interested in reading this book. Overall, a really well-made dust jacket in my opinion. And speaking of that dust jacket, I do want to do one final look, also looking at the interior flaps of the dust jacket itself. I'll go ahead and spread it so you can see again all of it in its detail for the direct market cover I have here. I do believe the standard edition also has a little bit of a different kind of image on the spine. I don't have a copy of that to show you, but just be aware if you end up with the standard edition. I really like this book. Like I said, I think it looks really sleek. I think whoever created the design work for the dust jacket did an impeccable job. Under the dust jacket as well, we have some art printed on the hardback book itself, I am delighted to say. The front and back images on the hardback book itself are lifted from this omnibus at different points, and the spine is a reproduction of the spine on the dust jacket, except the little picture here is a bit different. I actually think this could be the picture you would see on the spine of the standard edition. Really great look here. I love having art on the hardback. I just think it's a really fantastic way to showcase more artwork. In a book like this, there are so many different artists attached that even on these dust jacket and under the dust jacket images, you get a good feeling of a lot of the different art styles present in the book. And as we wrap up our look at the exteriors of this book, I'll go ahead and set it down, and we'll transition to a look at the binding itself. Now, I mentioned earlier this is a sewn binding. I know that my copy had this nice little eye, especially as I read through it. Really liked it. I think it reduced the gutter loss quite a bit. I think it laid open quite nicely. I had absolutely no problems with the binding of my omnibus. Really impressed with Marvel on this one. I think it was a really nicely done collection. Okay, and now we can transition to the book proper. As we start flipping through it, I will say there is a nice title page and kind of a creator breakdown. This is about as close as we get to a table of contents. It basically maps some of the major story arcs or what's included here and breaks it down by creative team. I thought that this was a really helpful touch. I would have preferred kind of a page-numbered table of contents, but you don't see those as much, especially with modern Marvel omnibuses. But this will suffice. I was happy with it. I think especially with a book like this, I mentioned earlier that there are a ton of different illustrators on this book, so having that mapped kind of title section that shows all the different creators is a really great way to index some of those creators. I will say the art style can be jarring for some, especially the transition throughout the book, and I'll try to give you a sampling of that as I make my way through this overview so you can see what I'm talking about. It's a really eclectic mix of different creators. I think it's particularly fascinating because Kelly Sue DeConnick wrote all the titles here. Having the artists switch throughout different story arcs really does showcase kind of the variety that these artists lend to books. It's not just about the writer, it's so much about what the illustrator also brings to the table. And I think that that's on full display here. I do think Kelly Sue DeConnick wrote a handful of really fantastic story arcs in this book, and the artists just definitely punched them up to different degrees. I think that there's a lot of very stylized different kind of art in this book, so it might be polarizing for some, but I absolutely loved it. I think to have a collection of this breadth, to see all the different creators, I just really had a lot of fun. It felt like every story arc or so, it got really refreshing because there was a new artist attached to the book. As far as what you can expect from this collection, this run takes place with Carol Danvers first taking on the moniker of Captain Marvel in her own self-titled series. Carol Danvers has always been a really fascinating character for me. I know I've read some of her early stuff, her Miss Marvel period, when she got these other kind of interstellar cosmic powers and became binary. I think she's had a couple different other identities or monikers or powers throughout the eras of Marvel history. And so she's kind of just shows up all over the place. I know she's been an Avenger for a really appreciable amount of time, but most recently she is Captain Marvel. And that is a superhero name and sort of costume color scheme that has belonged to several different heroes in the Marvel Universe, but this is Carol Danvers' time to have that title. And this is something we're familiar with if you're fans of the MCU movie or movies that star Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel. And I know she's been Captain Marvel in a lot of these different titles since, when did I say this came out? 2012. So it's not necessarily a new development, but newer in the entire scope of Marvel history. And I will say I had never had an opportunity to read any of Captain Marvel's solo title adventures. I'd see her show up in things like Civil War II or just some of these big crossovers and just part of the Avengers, things like that. I am also familiar with her as Miss Marvel quite a bit. I've read some of her earlier stuff, like in the Claremont X-Men era, like when she became binary, like I mentioned. But just really an interesting character. And so I always wanted to check out more of her solo titled stuff. I know we have this omnibus released and the Kelly Thompson Omnibus Volume 1 are both in print at the time of this recording, and I was really going back and forth on which one I wanted to check out. I had heard kind of good things about both. I do think Kelly Sue DeConnick's run is in some ways more polarizing, at least from what I've heard. This is my first foray into Kelly Sue DeConnick's literary works, and I will say I absolutely loved it. I'm not really sure why people are polarized about this run. I thought it was fantastic. I don't think it was overly preachy or in my face, but I did think it had a strong point of view and a really good handful of strong central characters, many of which are female, but I think that they were excellently written. I think the artists were really deftly handling this material, and everything just jumped off the page. There's this sense of just excitement and energy to a lot of these stories, some that are deeply personal character stories, and some that are just kind of space, far-out action adventure stories. But whatever it was, this was just a blast, and I actually enjoyed it so much I really want to seek out other Captain Marvel books. I'm trying not to go into too many plot spoilers because this is just like a surface level overview, but I will say there are plenty of stories that take place on Earth, in New York, and in the reaches of space. We have some great appearances from Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers, Spider-Man, and so many other characters from the Marvel Universe, but I think some of the strongest moments we have are when they're just Carol Danvers stories. I think that Kelly Sue DeConnick really understands who this character is and makes them that much more compelling. I also was impressed with how well this character worked, both in New York and in deep space. I think we get so much variety in this omnibus, and just it really covers a lot of ground. And yet, I never felt rushed. I feel like every story took the exact amount of time it needed to. The payoffs were always excellent, and I think that that is so much to the credit of DeConnick. Really, really impressive stuff here. I had a blast from page 1 all the way through the end. The book, like I said, starts with her kind of discussing taking on the mantle and title and role of Captain Marvel, and it ends somewhere around the kind of Secret Wars, Jonathan Hickman era crossover. We have Captain Marvel and the Carol Corps. That's like, I think, a 4-issue little miniseries they included here, and I thought it was a fantastic way to bookend this entire run. We do have a handful of extras at the back of the book as well, primarily variant cover art. and character models or sketches. I think I would have preferred to see also maybe some written work as extras, maybe an afterword or some kind of essay, but I will say I'm happy with what we got. This was such a fantastic book. I'm hoping to do a fuller, more spoiler-heavy review of this omnibus on my channel sometime in the coming weeks, but I wanted to provide a little bit of a framework as just a general overview, showcase some of the art, share a couple bits about the author, just to say this was a really fun book I think is worth a read, and I think a lot more people should be checking it out. If you want to pick up your copy, please head over to organicpricedbooks.com, and for more videos from me, Dominic, please check out my channel, The Comic Book Report. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good one.